What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be going over the set design, camera setup, lighting, and color grade for this interview setup. This interview setup was for a short documentary I was doing on a local painter, and I knew I wanted to go kind of like a high key light setup, and so we rented a studio that has a cyc wall because I knew the overall ambience of the room would be more high key and it'd be a little bit easier in the short amount of time that we had to set up. So I knew set design was going to be really important because we were shooting this on a cyc wall and it's very flat and very plain. There's not any shadows. So kind of the underlying feeling I wanted to have was just like a blank canvas in the background. And I didn't want to overdo the set design and make it too crowded. I kind of wanted to leave it kind of blank, kind of bare, but I knew I wanted to add some little splashes of natural colors. So what I did is I brought a plant that I had at home and I just put that in the foreground, and that also created depth. And then Alina had a piece of fabric that she put on a standing table, and then on top of that table she had this brown pot that still, like, it wasn't too much, but it was like just a nice little touch that also again created more depth. The other thing that we had is we had her sitting on a wooden stool, and I knew for a fact that I wanted this in the shot, the entire stool, just because it reminded me of something that a painter would use to sit on while they're making their art. So I just knew I wanted to kind of just show the entirety of that, and that leads me into camera setup. So I only use two cameras. I use a Blackmagic Pocket 4K with a 16mm Mikey lens. I wanted it to feel very open and not like super claustrophobic when it came to the main camera angle. And then the B cam, the second angle, I used the A7S III with a 50mm G Master lens on it. And that's not the most ideal camera combination. I kind of knew that it would take a lot of color correcting to get the images similar, but I had both cameras kind of chest high, shooting up a little bit, and then on both angles I had the plant on the left side in the foreground, and then in the background I had the pot. And that leads me into the lighting setup. So for lighting, we didn't have to do too much because we're shooting on a cyc wall. The light bounces around a ton, and I knew I wanted high key light, so I didn't need to use any negative fill or anything like that. We used the Aperture 300D, and then we used a Godox 120 watt light, and that Godox had a spotlight attachment with a window gobo on it, and that was just to add interest to the background and just kind of add some texture. So that leads me into the color grade. This could be its own video in itself. Let me know if you want that, but I thought I'd just briefly touch over just one angle. So I did a quick color space transform, and then I just adjusted exposure and contrast with the curves, fixed the skin tones, which on the Sony honestly took a little more work than the Pocket 4K. I got rid of the yellow kind of tone just by selecting the yellow in the background, desaturated it, added a little bit more of a cool tone to it with the color wheel. And then that plant was kind of like a yellow green, so I just used a hue tool to make it more green, and then brought down the luminance a little bit to make it an even dark, richer green. And then finally I added a lens blur just to create more depth. But that was it. Like, I kept everything pretty natural. If you have any more questions or want me to clarify anything, just drop that in the comments. But with that being said, I'll see you in the next one.